Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, buongiorno, buonasera. Dzień dobry, dobry wieczór i kalkila. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you may be. I believe today in the UK is a holiday. So, not the normal Monday, plenty of time for UK people, if they have the day off, to go through and catch up on a few videos and read a few posts, justiceforj.com. Today and tomorrow, I hope to be productive and put out a lot. There's a lot to cover, a lot to cover. But on Mondays, I do hope to have time to turn the cat backwards, have the plain white background. And that indicates we are talking about some select members of the accident group and some of the totally lunatic things that they have actually said. Today, I'm not going to cover a new member. I've gone and spoken about Kaz Alice, that was the first one. And she will be reappearing today, part two of Kaz Alice. Lorraine Reeves, our London lovey from up in Hampstead. There's a part two that I'm going to do on Laurie today in this video. And Fake Melissa, that 1 month old account that, like Lazarus, risen from the dead 1 month ago, decided to create a new YouTube account. Such is her terminal diagnosis. So we've looked into Melissa somewhat, and it's not a pretty sight. So today it is part two of Kaz Alice and part two of Laurie. Let's start with Laurie. Now, if you are a friend of Laurie, let me warn you right now, you don't want to be a friend of Laurie. Following her latest posts on how she defended, believe it or not, Laurie tried to defend Lucy's decision not to go and rescue Jay. Now, we had one feeble attempt at defending this position of getting a screenshot from your friend in distress and then deciding not to go and save your friend. That feeble attempt came from a certain Baz, whatever he's called. His way of explaining this was that it would be really dangerous to go and try to rescue a friend who was in a ravine or at the bottom of a ravine. Baz, poor guy, forgot that the last screenshot from Jay was not at the bottom of a ravine. It was right by a main road. So there is no, let's just put this out there. There is absolutely no danger whatsoever going to that spot along that road. I've been there. Thousands upon thousands of tourists every year go along that road, stop off at the Mirador, walk to that spot, go down the track that heads down the ravine. It is only at the end of that track that it gets hazardous. So please, anyone out there, anyone in the accident group out there that thinks, yeah, this makes sense, that where Jay's last location is, it's a really dangerous place. It is not. It is not at all. No one, as far as I know, no one has ever died there, come a cropper there, nothing untoward has ever happened. And I would submit the same with Jay. I don't think anything untoward happened there at all. As Felix Rios said, the criminologist, who is a hiker aficionado and knows that area very well, he said people do not die here. Yeah, it's possible you get hypothermia. Yeah, people don't fall off ravines there. Fall into a ravine there. Possibly get hypothermia. Said you get cold at night. You could die there, but people don't. So this whole idea that it was far too dangerous for Lucy to go to Jay's last location is absolute codswallop. It really is just down the road, a few minutes walk from one of the most popular spots in the whole of Tenerife, that Mirador, that beautiful viewpoint, which is visited, as I say, thousands of people, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people have been down that road with no problem at all. So for Laurie and the rest of them, Baz, all of the accident group, it is not an issue at all to go to Jay's last known location. Even if that pin location is not perfectly accurate, because as it's shown on Lucy's screenshot, It is just slightly, not a lot, just slightly off that road. Now, when I say slightly off that road, it is not perfectly accurate. It could be 10 meters out. If it's a GPS location, it's going to be pretty darn accurate, but it could be 10 meters out. Let's say it's 20 meters out. 20 meters off that it could be on the main road if it's inaccurate to that degree. It could be Jay was actually on that road. But let's say it is 10, 20 meters. Let's say it's 20 meters off that road. If you go to that road and stop at the closest point on that road to that pinned location and look down, as I have done, it's a sharp descent, the chances are 20 meters away, you're going to see someone lying in a ditch. And for sure, if you call out Jay as loud as you possibly can, you're going to be heard from someone 20 meters away. So this whole argument that Laurie put out there that, well, Lucy would have been surely scared to go there, you're not going to believe the other argument. This is why you don't want to be a friend of Laurie. Laurie also said it could be very expensive. It could be very expensive, you see, the expense of a taxi to go from Lucy's place all the way up past Masca to that point, that could be very expensive. And Laurie made this point. If the taxi driver had to wait, let's say for an hour, while Lucy's looking around for Jay, can you imagine the cost of the taxi meter going up and up and up while Lucy's looking? You see, in this situation, our London lovey Laurie is so focused on the cost of the life of a friend. You don't want to be Laurie's friend, because I tell you, if you're an hour away from Laurie and you send Laurie a screenshot of where you are and you're saying you got no water, you got no phone, you're lying in a ditch, and you really want Laurie to come and help, Laurie is first of all going to assess how difficult or dangerous it is to get to that point, and then what could possibly be the cost of a taxi there and possibly a taxi waiting while you look around. That is how heartless Laurie is, to the same degree as Lucy. So I think we are seeing now, and this is very informative, we're seeing exactly who in that accident group are the totally heartless bitchs that you don't ever want to call your friend. I'll repeat this. You can check it out. Laurie's statement is quite clear. Lucy made the right decision not going there because it could have been very, very expensive. And it could have been a dangerous place to go to. Therefore, why bother going there? Because it might happen that you go there and you don't find your friend. To me, when you're a caring person and you have a friend in need, you go anywhere where that friend is desperate for you to go, no matter what the chances are of finding the person, even if it's 1 in a million, 1 in 100, 50-50. You go because that is what is the right thing to do. Now, people like Laurie have forgotten something very, very important here. And that is Lucy already said that she was prepared to go to where Jay was. Now, let's go back to this, because this whole argument, well, Lucy wouldn't have known how to go or where to go, or was it dangerous or what? Hang on a second. In that Sky phone interview, Lucy said to Jay, apparently, go back to where you come from. And Lucy said, I'll come and pick you up from there. Now, where is there? If she said, go back to where you came from, I'll come and pick you up from there before your phone dies, she must be referring to where Jay came from. Now, Lucy would argue she didn't know where Jay came from. Lucy would argue she only knows that Jay, after they left Magic Mike's, went off with the mystery man, right? But Lucy would claim to not know where that is. That's why she had to use, I don't know, Google Maps or Google Images to find the Airbnb. But the point is, if Lucy didn't know at that point when she said to Jay, I'll come and pick you up from there, if she didn't know where there was, that means Lucy is A, prepared to go to anywhere, no matter how dangerous the place is. If she doesn't know where Ayub is staying, She says, I'll go there to pick you up. Then danger isn't part of Lucy's fear here, and nor is cost. Absent from this conversation is Lucy saying, Jay, I don't know if I can go there, wherever there is, to pick you up, because it might be a dangerous place, and I haven't got the money. She doesn't say that. She says quite clearly, I'll come and pick you up from there before your phone dies. So, the question here is, why did Lucy change her mind, Laurie? You've already tried to explain why you wouldn't have gone to save a friend's life. We get that. You're a heartless bitch. We get that. But Lucy said she would, and then changed her mind. Why? So this is the problem. One of the problems I have with the accident group is they try to defend the indefensible. And at the end of the day, I'll repeat this, all in the accident group, every single one of them knows the answers to all of these questions. If I just throw out the question, Lucy said that she would go to pick up Jay from wherever he came from, but then she decided not to do that. She decided not to go up there at all. Why? Why do the accident group, who know the answer, Lucy knows Luggy, Luggy knows all the accident group, it's gone on for nearly 2 years. Surely everyone in the accident group has checked with Luggy as what is the answer to this? Why did Lucy not go there? And surely Luggy's told them all, so they all know the answer. So why do they pretend not to know the answer? This is the stupidest thing about the Jay Slater case. A large number of people, the accident group, who talk to each other, they're curious, they have contact with Luggy and some with Debbie, they all have the answers. Rather than tell any of the answers, they prefer, month after month, year after year, for this nonsense to go on. That is their preference. It is so weird. But Laurie, I need to give her a little bit more roasting here. She raises a question which I think needs to be addressed again. Laurie says that Laurie would have called emergency services. And I think Laurie thinks that that is what Lucy did, to call emergency services. But Lucy didn't do that, Laurie, did she? Lucy conspicuously did not call emergency services, as you put it. She could have done. She should have done. Most people would have done. Because if you sincerely believe your friend is in such dire circumstances, that friend could die. As Lucy said, it could be fatal when she was trying to submit her missing person report. Yeah, if you really believe that person could die lying in a ditch, then you would call emergency services. You would call an ambulance. And the ambulance would inform the police. And it would be an emergency. The problem with that, Laurie, is an emergency isn't a missing persons case. So I would submit the reason Lucy never did call emergency services, or even though she claims it was an emergency, was because she knew, or she was told, that once an emergency situation is declared, ambulance, police, possibly the bomberos, the firefighters in that remote location, are all involved. That ain't a missing persons case. The person in dire need is there and found, is going to get treated, and then the investigation begins as to what happened. Not a missing persons case. Investigation into the background and possibly any foul play that was involved. This, Laurie, you understand, is the situation that Lucy must avoid. No emergency services, no investigation, no question and answers. She must avoid that. So Lucy's a bit trapped here, isn't she, Laurie? She's got to make it seem like it's an emergency. Yeah, get the helicopters out, get the dog sniffing, get everything. But she can't call the emergency services. How does she get around that? to avoid any investigation. It is missing persons case, but please, it is such an urgent missing persons case, even though I know the person's location, that it's an emergency. Now, Laurie is so dense that she doesn't understand that even though Laurie would call emergency services, Lucy can't. And I can't explain it any clearer than that. That Lucy can't treat this as an emergency situation because the whole process of a missing person situation compared to emergency finding of a person in great need is different. And Lucy and the gang get in a whole lot of trouble if emergency services are called and not a missing persons report filed. Let's leave that. There's plenty more to roast on Laurie, but I will repeat, if you're a friend of Laurie, don't ever call her for help. She'll start adding up the cost and start calculating how dangerous it is to get to you. Even though Lucy didn't do that, Laurie would. Let us move on to Kaz Alice. Part 2 of the roasting of Kaz Alice. Kaz is the one that said two things, and this came up in Jan's Views Live last night. Chris Pennington choosing not to go to Jay's funeral. After a long time thinking about this and trying to figure out the pros and cons of it, Kaz Alice said that it is perfectly understandable that Chris didn't go to the funeral because he had family that had already booked to come and visit him in Tenerife. I said on Jan's Views Live last night, I don't buy that. That's nonsense. I don't know. Maybe Chris Pennington's family are different from all other families on this planet. It's possible. The Pumpkin family ain't the same as a normal family. But I said, if I had family members that had booked to come to visit me, and it just so happened that for 24 hours of that visit, I had to fly to Manchester to go to a funeral and then fly back immediately, every one of my family would understand that is important, and they would not expect me to stay around just to entertain them while I went to a funeral. And yet Kaz Alice is the one that thinks we are stupid enough to believe that that's what happened with Chris. That because his family visiting was of greater importance than going to the funeral of the lad he nearly lost his life in finding, yeah, that makes sense. It doesn't, Kaz. Pull the other one. It's got bells on, you know. So think this through again, Kaz. What would be a better lie or excuse for you to come up with to explain Chris's absence? I don't know. Maybe Chris or someone very close to him was having open heart surgery. It's got to be pretty damn severe for someone to say, hey, I can't be bothered to get on that Ryanair flight to Manchester, go to a funeral and come back. It's got to be pretty darn severe, I would say. Given how weepy Chris is holding up his plaque of devotion that he gave to the poor missing Jay, given the devotion, the outpouring of emotion from this man towards Debbie and the family, there's almost a visible tear emerging, welling up in his eye and falling down his cheeks as Chris describes the plight of the dear family of Jay. And yet, when it came to that all-important funeral day, Chris is like, nah, I got family visiting. Ain't gonna go. Luggy can represent me. Well, on that score, Kaz, why would Luggy represent Chris? Why not have one of Chris's family? He does have family in the Cheshire area, surely. Go and represent him. Why rely on someone from West Wales to go all the way up there to represent him? I don't know. Funeral, you don't need an invitation for. A funeral is anyone can go and observe. You might not be invited into the church for the service. You might not be invited into the wake and all that. Party afterwards. But the actual funeral, anyone can go. What is to stop one of Chris's family in the UK just going to the funeral to represent him? Why the slugtard? Now, the other point that Kaz Alice tried to make was that poor Luggy, let's get out our very small violin at this point, poor Luggy has been lambasted, absolutely lambasted, for showing up to the funeral and would have been lambasted for not showing up to the funeral. No, Kaz, again, you've got this wrong. To my knowledge, no one has criticised Luggy for going to the funeral. I don't have a problem with Luggy going to the funeral. Why not? The problem, Kaz, is how Luggy conducted himself at that funeral. I thought it was despicable. I thought it was disgusting. For at a funeral, to be snapping away, taking pictures, taking selfies, taking videos, call me old-fashioned, but I would have thought a funeral is one of those moments when you put your damn phone away, you put your damn camera away, and you are actually respectful and solemn for a while. Can media-addicted slugtard do that? Of course not. And quite what he thought he was up to, spreading gossip around saying the Guardia Civil lied to the family. I'm sorry, Kaz, a funeral is not the time and place to start talking about who lied to whom over the death of a young man. That revealed how heartless Sluggy really is. And you noticed when Sluggy was talking to that person he thought was a media person, a reporter, and Sluggy started going on and on about his role in finding Jay, only to find out this person had nothing to do with the media. Sluggy then was like, oh, okay, in that case, there's no point talking to you. I thought you were a reporter. I thought you were going to report what I was saying here. So I would ask you, Kaz Alice, to what extent was Luggy's trip up to the funeral, to what extent was it part of his whole let me cover my image on social media, let me blast out my ugly grinning fizzog to the world, let me maybe get quoted in the media, let me talk to people and say how lying the Guardia Civil were, what lying hounds they all were. You see, I don't see this, Kaz, as funeral behaviour. And that is why I think so many people felt that Sluggy ain't being 100% honest when he talks about how deep and caring he is about Jay Slater. Some of us at that point felt he was a total fraud, a total narcissist, a total attention hound. It wasn't funeral behaviour. But for you, Kaz, if you think that was the best behaviour and you think Luggy acquitted himself well, honestly, Kaz, speaks volumes for you. All right, let's leave it there. Possibly more roasting of Kaz and Laurie to come, but possibly a new AG member is ready to be roasted next time. We'll see. Hasta luego. Adios. Let's leave it there.